Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
Joshua Shrum. He is a very talented steward, very knowledgeable.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. This is one of those podcasts where I listen to every episode. I love what he's putting out there.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. Josh Shrum.
Parcels of Knowledge. Does a fantastic job with that podcast.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.
Good morning, and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, that podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today we are sitting at grievance number 82 in the beautiful city of Roseville, Michigan, and we got ourselves a Wrecking Crew Wednesday, and it's a special one this time. Yeah, we got a new member. We're up to 10 Patreon members, 10 members of the Roseville Wrecking Crew. Yes, that's right. If you think this podcast provides you value, well then, please feel free to share the love and go to the Patreon. It's patreon.com/parcels of knowledge. And our members will be able to make things happen. You can donate anything between $1 and $50, and you could cancel at any time, but it's a per month donation. So far, and we also would like to recognize the Wrecking Crew every Wednesday. So that's why we got Wrecking Crew Wednesdays, of course. Our Wrecking Crew is a badass group of individuals who are here to make things better for the city letter carrier. And that means that when you guys give me those donations, I'm not going to take them as profit. What I'm doing is I'm reinvesting them into the letter carrier, specifically in regards to protecting the letter carrier through the grievance procedure. And these badass members of the Wrecking Crew are the reason why it happens. Like, for example, they're the reason why I currently have a giveaway right now for reference materials for stewards. And all you have to do to be a part of that giveaway is to subscribe to my YouTube. That's the Parcels of Knowledge YouTube. And I'm going to pull the winner out of that YouTube. So without further ado, let's introduce the 10 members of the Wrecking Crew. We got Rick Steiner, E.R., Tom Perry, Philip DeGilio, Chris Angeloff, Amy Tyvand, Ryan Ackers, Edmund DeVore, Miziel Guzman, and the new member is Great One. Let's see. I got to ask that member if he'd like to be named, because I personally know what their name is, but they didn't sign up under their real names, so I don't know if they want to be named. But either way, thank you very much for everything you guys do, you badass group of individuals. All right, so moving on. Don't forget, if you want to be a part of the Patreon, I'm going to have in the description below, click here to support the podcast, and it will have the link to our Patreon. Anyway, without further ado, let's move on. I do want to remind everybody that Saturdays with Shrum is still in existence. We are slated all the way through May, which will be our first year anniversary. I want to do something special for our 1 year anniversary. I do want to give away some J-Cams. I'd like to give away a J-Cam to every member of the Patreon, if possible. We'll see if that's possible. It's no promise, but I'm definitely going to try to give a J-Cam to every member of the Patreon, if possible. A physical J-Cam copy. But regardless, we have an interview with Danna Chambless coming up. She is from Branch 4. I believe she's the president in Nashville, Tennessee. She is running for NALC Region 8 NBA. As we already know, we're going to be able to submit any question you want to Danna Chambless. And on Saturday, we should have an episode where she answers each and every one of your questions. Last time I asked you guys to turn up the heat because we were getting too many easy questions. You guys actually provided exactly that. So I'd like you guys to send me any questions. You got less than a week. So I'm counting on you to send me questions for Danna Chambless. I already got a little bit. She's running for Region 8 NBA. Please send us that any question you'd like to be asked that would, in your view, articulate whether or not she is good for that position. So, moving on, I do want to talk about something that I think is ridiculous. I think that people are sharing something that is absolutely dangerous, and I think that we should stop. And that is, there was a recent Supreme Court decision, and this decision was in regards to whether or not the service can be sued in relation to a discrimination case where the client was claiming that they were racially discriminated against, or it might not be racially. There was some sort of discrimination, whether it's race, gender, or whatever, that the service, particularly the mail carrier, was withholding their mail and the tenant's mail of the apartment complex that she owned. And the Supreme Court handed a decision saying that, surprisingly, in a 5-4 split, the Postal Service cannot be held accountable for that. And I think that's ridiculous. I think that they should have been able to be held accountable. I do know that in the past, they have ruled that the Postal Service they're not actually part of that thing that allows government entities not to be sued for the interest of the public. And in this case in particular, they said that that clause did apply to the Postal Service, which I think ever since 1970s it should not have. But it was a 5-4 split, so it could have went either way. It was the difference between one Supreme Court member. So, unfortunately, we lost, but people are relating that to the way that management carries mail today. The ruling had nothing to do with whether or not the service can decide not to fulfill their universal service obligation and not be held legally responsible. What the case had to do with was whether or not the clause that would allow the service not to be sued applied to the service, the clause that applies to typical government agencies. That people are relating this to that and saying that management will feel emboldened, which is true, but the two cases are absolutely separate. And as usual, people are, management's stupid. They're going to use the things that they can in ways that they shouldn't. But we shouldn't be helping this along. Stop spreading the information that this allows management not to deliver the mail. It doesn't. It's completely separate. We're not trying to sue them either. We're trying to file a grievance. It's completely different. But regardless, please stop sharing that information. It's kind of disheartening to see that carriers are falling for the fact that they think that they feel defeated in terms of the undelivered mail issue. We are defeated, not for the same reasons. We're defeated by our own people, the NALC. They need to stand up and do what they need to do in order to develop an action plan for this issue. But this case has nothing to do with us. It's not going to affect anything. Moving on, let's talk about the main topic today, which, I've talked about defenses for attendance discipline before. Attendance discipline is something that happens very, very often. And for that reason, I'm going to do a lot of episodes just talking about different parts, because if I did one episode where I said everything I knew, well, then you're not going to retain a lot of the things. So I think it's more about repetition. We need to actually listen and listen and listen. Over time, you'll retain everything. So first, I'd like to start off with each attendance case is different. Each discipline is different. It goes along the lines of the ingredients you get bakes the cake, not the other way around. You don't bake the cake. You work with the ingredients you're given. We're not chefs here. We're subject to the conditions of the case itself. And each and every case is different, because each and every case is judged on its own circumstances. But recently I had talked to an individual. They claimed that I helped them win their attendance discipline. They did it on their own. They had their own ideas. I did put my opinion in, but they're a very smart individual. I'll give them a shout out. It's Abraham from Louisiana. They won an attendance discipline recently based on an argument that they thought I helped them with. But really, you did a great job yourself. Very good job, well done. You got the discipline expunged. And that is going to be the first of the 3 arguments I'm going to go over today, because I think that these 3 arguments are relevant to what management is doing today. It might not be relevant in your office. So just take this in mind, and when you're looking at the information you're given for an attendance discipline, make sure you see whether or not these situations apply. Number 1 is double jeopardy. In this person's particular case, the carrier had been given a letter of warning. This letter of warning, for some reason, the way they do it over there is in the charge letter itself. They don't cite the dates. In my area, they do. But in that charge letter for them, they cited a time frame instead. So normally in my office, they would say, hey, your absence on these 6 dates, and then you answered this way in your attendance interview, and then blah, blah, blah. But in that charge letter, they said from, let's say, October to November 17th, you had a period of absences that ended up causing you to be irregular in attendance. So they took a time frame and they asked about each individual date in the INI, but they didn't list each individual date on the charge letter. I don't like that, but it's not necessarily something that will win you a case anyway. So the 7-day came, and so the first one said whatever to November 17th. Well, the 7-day suspension started November 1st and continued on. So there was a 17-day lapse, 17-day cross-section that was cited twice. As you may know, that is double jeopardy. If you cite something twice, you are being punished for it twice. Each charge letter itself are the entire investigation and the entire facts and circumstances this individual is being disciplined for. If you are citing a 17-day period twice, that is double jeopardy. That is a fatal flaw, and it's a symptom of supervisors who don't have time to write people up. This is going on. It's going on everywhere. Now, don't get me wrong. I think more often than not, a supervisor is going to double check their work, but you'll find it's actually more common than you think. So one of the things you need to do when you get your charge letter from the grievant or from management is to determine whether or not double jeopardy has occurred. Check to see if not only another discipline has been incorporated into the same discipline you just were handed, but also see if they cited anything as an official discussion. For example, if they said an official discussion was held on November 17th for the absences that were prior to it, well, then they've already been given the first level of discipline, 16-4 discussion. So they can't also discipline them with a letter of warning for November 1st through November 17th as well. That's also double jeopardy. Double jeopardy is a fatal flaw. it is a very, very likely to win in arbitration. It is not something that arbitrators mess with, because even if you may have been guilty, double jeopardy is absolutely not acceptable. It is an absolute fatal flaw for discipline. It works in any discipline, not just attendance, but we're here to talk about attendance. So number 2, let's move on. Something that I see that happens a lot is not asking about particular dates in the INI, and then in the charge letter, they cite those dates. Like, for example, let's say you were absent for 4 or so days, and November 1st, management decides, okay, I want to have an INI with this individual. But you know, they're pieces of shit and they don't know how to get things done. So they wait until November 30th to have the actual sit-down INI. Well, they ask all those dates because they wrote the INI November 1st. They ask all those dates prior to November 1st. But you did call in since then, since between November 1st and November 30th. Oftentimes, they're going to cite those dates you called in because they don't have their I's dotted and their T's crossed. You know, they're just clueless in their everyday life. And they're dishonest as well, so they don't care. So after that interview on November 30th, they go in, they look at all your absences, and they cite every single one since the whole time period. Well, anything that was cited between November 1st and November 30th that wasn't asked about in the interview is a flaw in their charge. So make sure that your investigative interviews, the dates, every single date that they're charged with is asked about, because it's their job to have a thorough investigation. This is one of the just cause principles. In Article 16, you'll see that the just cause principles have to be applied in every case in order for this to stick. Likely also, simultaneously, in the EL 921, it says that even if one just cause principle fails, they should not apply that discipline. Well, this is one of the just cause principles. They have to provide a thorough investigation. There could have been mitigating circumstances for those dates. Your absence alone is not enough for them to discipline you. And that entire charge letter is a culmination of what you're being disciplined for. So if even a part of that charge letter is faulty, well, then they have to throw away that charge, because they're not charging you for, okay, only part of the charges. They're charging you for the entire charge. And if the entire charge has dates that they didn't investigate, that is also a fatal flaw. Not as successful as double jeopardy, of course, because double jeopardy is like almost entirely a winnable thing. But it's still a very successful argument, because they do have to provide an investigation for each and every date. And number 3, we're going to talk about the percentage of leave argument that everyone talks about on other podcasts, like, for example, Corey Walton. I think that regular in attendance, which is expected by the ELM, versus perfect in attendance, which is what management expects, is a valid argument. One of the things that you need to be doing is asking in an investigative interview, what is your definition of regular in attendance? And if you don't get it there, you can ask it separately and get them on record. And if they want you to be there every single day, that's impossible. I'm sorry, but it is. It's not possible to be there 100% of the time. Now, they're getting desperate, and they're taking large amounts of time, and they're spreading it out and saying, you've been absent 3 times in 120 days. If you do the math, you'll see that you were there almost the entire time. Like Corey says, something along the lines of 98% of the time. 98% is a very good metric. So one of the things you got to take into consideration is changing the perspective in each case. If you say, hey, this individual called out 3 times, that might look bad. But if you say that they have good attendance, that their attendance is 98%. That would look good on paper. Change the perspective so that the arbitrator or Step B could really understand the whole case. We need to start doing that a lot more often. I think that management uses this to their advantage when they write the charge letter. They do whatever they can in their best interest to be able to make the carrier look bad. We need to take all that information and flip it around on them. And I think that that percentage of leave argument is perfect. I think that we need to start using that, do the math on that, and show that even by management standards, like they have a lot of other metrics. Ask them what metrics they have to meet. Guarantee you 98% would almost always actually help them. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was asking a manager about SPM scans, and we have this SPM document that I talked about before that says that if you forgot, then you can just leave it until the end of the day where it will clear by itself. I asked the supervisor what I've been taught. I said, well, what do you think we need to do if we forgot? Both the supervisor and the postmaster told me that's not an option. Well, their own document does say it's an option because they are realistic in their own document. Everybody forgets. We're not machines. Just like everyone's not going to be able to make it to work. There are plenty of reasons that are legitimate. Like, for example, transportation, family needs, hospitalization. You're never going to have 100% in attendance. And I don't care. All these other people will say, I never missed a day. Sure, you might not have, and that's great for you. But the vast majority of the time, you're not going to achieve perfection. And you can't expect anybody to be machines and also achieve perfection. We have leave for a reason. Sick leave is not something that should be punished. It's a benefit that we're given. That's another argument you should also be putting in there if they're getting in trouble for sick leave alone. But yes, take these information that management gives you and flip it over to the point where you can make it look good on the carrier. I think that's impactful in the case file. And that's all I want to go over today. You know, I like to keep my episodes relatively short. I just want to remind you, if you want to be a member of the Patreon, where you can help us develop our podcast and also, help me be able to provide stewards with material to use, feel free to join our Patreon. It's in the description below. Also, please send me questions for Danna Chambless. She's running for Region 8 NBA. And I'll take any question you got. We got some questions right now, but we're going to need more. She is Corey Walton's branch president, if I'm not mistaken. And she's also, from what I hear, she's pretty good at what she does. So please feel free to send any question you'd like. And hopefully you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
If these guys are getting educated, we will be in big trouble.
Management's been weighing you down like a bag of wet catalogs, but you don't gotta take it. You strap on the elbow of education, dig it?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God, we need Article 8 scholars right now. The grievous genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.